Hello, good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here with you, especially in this special occasion with Inovação. So my name is Jackie Hernandez, and it is my pleasure to be with you. I'm a Senior Vice President of Global Partnerships for Plug and Play, and I am talking to you from California, Silicon Valley. So for those of you that don't know, Plug and Play is the largest global innovation platform in the world. And our mission is to make technology available to anyone, everywhere. And that is why we have opened more than 30 offices around the world to promote innovation and to bring disruptive technologies to market faster. We have a database of over 30,000 startups, out of which we invest in approximately 200 per year. And we run over 60 business acceleration programs for these startups to help all of the corporations to get access to these technologies. In addition to that, we're a very active investor. And in 2020, we saw the birth of 4 new unicorns in our portfolio, which are those startups that have reached over $1 billion in valuation. We work today with more than 500 leading corporations from around the world and supercharge them to advance their digital and cultural transformation. And of course, we are present in Brazil through our Sao Paulo office, and we're very honored to work alongside leading Brazilian corporations like Klabin. So my main work in the past years has been corporate innovation and strategy. And really, if we come to think of it, it's most of the people are talking about innovation lately, about the processes translating an idea or invention into a new service or to provide value to the companies at scale. And the reality is majority of the people identify innovation or associate innovation with some activities in collaboration, ideation, implementation, but overall value creation for the organizations. Now, what we have seen is that really innovation is challenging, and you have to really think that what got you here today is not what is going to take you to the future. And the reason is that there is a lot of technologies that are up and coming every time. And when they come, they grow, they reach maturity, and then there's another one coming. So if you really want to remain relevant around the world, your goal is to really to keep reinventing yourself to make sure that you remain relevant and you stay in the market. We know that more than the half of the companies in the Fortune 500 have disappeared since the year 2000. And it is precisely because of that, because they have not been able to keep up with the change and keep up with the emerging technologies. And so we have seen how the world has been changing, and from the trading tycoons all the way to the new disruptors in the industry. Now, what it is really interesting is how do we remain competitive, and what are those sources of competitive advantage? And of course, like everybody else, is going to go back to the basics, perhaps take a look at the McKinsey models and take a look, well, perhaps we should stay on Horizon 1 to identify how can we improve our efficiency, or to go to Horizon 2 to improve or increase our differentiation with different products, services, or even experiences for our clients. And then really when we start thinking seriously is how can we innovate ourselves in a sustainable model, such a way that we can remain competitive along the world with breakthrough technologies and to be disruptive. And so this is really important, obviously, because there is a lot of challenges when we're talking about innovation. And these challenges can come from different sources, whether they are operational challenges or really the knowledge. How much do we know about innovation? but throughout the interactions with all the corporations from around the world, and many years working in innovation, what we have seen is that these challenges and these barriers might be of different nature, but most of the nature is going to be associated a lot with cultural challenges and cultural transformation. And there is where we start having a little bit of complications. Strategy or structural or processes can be adopted through time, but culture, you have to be very consistent. So when it comes to structure, of course, we have seen a number of things in innovation, and majority of the corporations tend to work in hierarchical teams. And in the best case scenario, they are hybrid teams. However, they tend to be bureaucratic. They need a lot of supervision from the management, and usually they are task driven. And what we have seen is the best performing corporations have what we call innovative teams. And the setup is a little bit different because really they are incorporating a number of people in order to make things happen. And so if we take a look at the big picture, obviously the big picture includes our ability to understand what it is happening in the environment, such a way that we can identify all of the components of the present moment, and also have a future view about what it is coming from the future, what are the drivers and trend, to set the context such a way that the organizations, through their governance, are able to give a little bit of direction to innovation teams. And then these innovation teams are able to provide value through new ideas after obtaining also information from the environment. And this is a very dynamic approach that it is really necessary for an innovative company. Now, in order for an innovation team to perform really well, it has to be multidisciplinary, self-organized, autonomous, and value-driven. And this is part of the structure and is super key in order to really break through innovation. Now, in order for an innovation team to perform really well, it has to be multidisciplinary, self-organized, autonomous, and value-driven. But above all, really, it has to be diverse, to be able to incorporate all types of inputs and perspective that will enrich the value proposition and connect with the intended audience and purpose. Diversity means not only the different functions, but also different mindsets to allow inclusion in the workplace. Now, I am going to go a little bit more personal, and usually I don't do that. I show you the first slide with my picture. I'm adding a few things you don't know about me that might bring me closer to you and to every woman in the room, especially now, just after Women's Month in March. I usually remain neutral when I talk about innovation, but today it is about making a difference and challenging the status quo on the way we normally do things. It is time that we push for changes and innovate our work environment as well. In October of 2020, Goldman Sachs published the Womenomics 2020 report. Funny name, huh? Womenomics. So this is women economics, where they reported several findings about the performance of women in the work environment. This study was in Europe, but they compared the United States and Japan. Unfortunately, no comparison in Latin America. They confirmed that in a basket of 600 European stocks, companies where more female leaders saw their share price outperform by 2.5 per year of those with less women leaders. This is not news. We have seen multiple performance indicators outperforming on women-led organizations. So go back a little bit on the slide before. So I'm a Latin woman. I was born in Mexico. I'm a single mother as well. I'm a chemist, and I have been 30 plus years in the industry, working near man-led organizations in Silicon Valley. You know what that means, and you know what I am talking about. So going back to the slide, it is very interesting. Perhaps you saw this in the news. You might have seen the picture of Whitney White Wolf. She's the youngest CEO to take an American company public at 31 years old. Each year since the New York Exchange was founded in 1817, hundreds of companies have gone public, and only about 20 of those companies were founded and led by women. So while Whitney was not the first woman to take a company public, she was the one who carried her baby to ring the bell, and that sent a very powerful message to the rest of the world. The issue is that women aren't thinking about starting businesses or planning for outsized success early enough. And when they do, they aren't dreaming big enough. So we really have a lot of work to do. The biggest obstacle many women face on their way to senior leadership is getting past the entry-level position. In a study conducted by McKinsey and the Lean In organization from Sheryl Sandberg, they found that for every 100 men who became managers, only 72 women were promoted to the same level. Before this year, women in the workplace had consistently found that women and men leave their companies at comparable rates. However, due to challenges created by the COVID-19 crisis, as many as 2 million women are considering leaving the workplace due to considerable pressure from taking care of their children or elderly parents. If these women feel forced to leave the workplace, we will end up with far fewer women in the leadership and far fewer women on track to be future leaders. All the progress that we have seen over the past 6 years could be completely erased. So, despite the barriers, it is time for more women to try and for the corporate world to enable cultural change, to give more opportunities to women. If companies recognize the scale of these problems and do all they can to address them, they can help their employees to get through this difficult time and even reinvent a way that they work so it is more flexible and sustainable for everyone. If not, the consequences could badly hurt women, businesses, and the economy as a whole. This moment requires long-term thinking, creativity, strong leadership, and a lesser focus on the value of women to their organizations. This moment is important. Some of the organizations really have to focus on better ways to support women. And here are a few ideas, especially taken from this study. Number one, a sustainable workplace. We have seen a lot of people being burnt out by the way that we're working. They may also need to reset the goals and narrow project scopes, or keep the same goals and extended deadlines, because people are really getting burnt out, especially women that have to do the double shift. They have to really work not only what they have to deliver inside of the work schedule, but on top of that, usually they work up to 3 hours more than men in order to keep up with internal tasks. That causes a lot of burnt out. So the second thing is to reset the norms around flexibility and establishing set hours for meetings, putting policies in place for responding to emails outside typical business hours, and improving communication about work hours and availability with the teams, such a way that at least you have a little bit of those lines a little bit more defined and you prevent that burnt out. The third one is to take a closer look at the performance reviews so that the companies can refocus on key priorities by reassessing performance criteria set before the pandemic to make sure those criteria are still attainable. And tech takes steps to minimize the gender bias. When co-workers start looking at people, they assume consciously or unconsciously that women are less committed to their jobs, or when managers are evaluating women in performance reviews, they also take these things into consideration, and many times it's unconscious. And so implementing bias training is important because it really at least can make people aware of those biases. And also it is important to track the outcomes for promotions raised by gender, as well as the breakdown of layoffs and furlongs by gender, such a way that we understand what are the numbers exactly. Number 5, and really important, is to adjust the policies and programs to better support employees. We know that many companies are offering today mental health counseling. However, half of the employees know that it is available. So let the employees know that these benefits are available and offer other valuable programs such as parenting resources, health checks, and bereavement counseling. So it is important that we work on all of these activities. So the most important of all, it's really communication. The building blocks of a more empathetic workplace may also be falling into place nowadays. And hopefully this pandemic has helped us a little bit also. Open and frequent communication with employees is critical, especially in a crisis. Companies should share more regular updates on the state of the businesses and key decisions that affect employees' works and lives. We have to increase focus on supporting employees as whole people so they feel they can bring their whole selves to work and make good things happen. Employees will be happier with their jobs, more optimistic about their company's commitment to gender and racial equality, and less likely to consider downshifting the role or leaving the workplace. It is really time to stop thinking, what if it fails? And instead to think, what if it works? That is my message of today. And I hope with this 30 years and some gray hair, I can inspire more women and men to work together for more inclusion of women in the workplace. Thank you very much.